It's fair to say that Easter eggs in horror games can be a little bit different to experience. I mean, when you're in the middle of being hunted down by a genetically mutated freak intent on separating your head from your shoulders, you're not really stopping to sniff about for giant pink bunnies lurking at the edges of the map. The tension is high, the stakes are even higher, and it takes a little time to get yourself amped up to go poking about in the dark. When you do manage it though, there are all sorts of surprises waiting there for you, and not all are bad. Whilst yes, many horror Easter eggs add that extra notch of creepiness, sometimes they offer a ray of comfort instead, a joke that gives some levity in such a heart-racing situation. From the story of a misspelled sign, all the way through to clever little dogs, lake monsters, and a full-blown tribute to Twin Peaks, horror video games often have some of the best references of them all. If only you can keep your lunch down long enough to actually find them. I am the Easter Bunny, Ash from WhatCulture Gaming, and these are 10 horror video game Easter eggs you need to see for yourself. 10. Alan Wake, R Diner. From Remedy Entertainment, Alan Wake is one of the hidden gems of the Xbox 360 era, mixing heavy influences from classic literature with psychological thriller and horror elements. The game, if not entirely scary, has some weird themes and creepy things that lurk in the dark which only get worse as the game progresses. Luckily though, you'll be able to find this Easter egg in the very first hour of the game. Alan Wake's cultural inspirations, particularly in regard to television shows, are quite deeply rooted. Twin Peaks is one of the strongest influences, with rumours even claiming that the game was originally far closer to a video game adaptation of the show rather than its own unique story. The Oh Dear Diner that Alan enters early in the game is almost an exact copy of the R Diner found in Twin Peaks, right down to the layout, similarities in costumes, and even the characters inside. For example, both feature a police officer focused on the coffee, the waitress is almost identical, and there's even a creepy old lady holding a lamp. It's not completely obvious if you haven't seen the TV show, but if you have, it's a neat little egg. 9. Silent Hill 2, MIRA ending. Silent Hill 2's dog ending is easily the most bizarre Easter egg on this list, and has become one of the more famous endings among the Silent Hill franchise. What is usually a series poised on offering the most suspenseful and tense moments in the genre, for some reason offers an ending with a mischievous little dog. If you want to see it though, you'll need to complete a few prerequisites, including gaining endings such as In Water, Leave and Maria, or having previously received the Rebirth ending. You must then find a key inside a doghouse outside, watch a videotape, and finally, access the observation room within the Lakeview Hotel. You'll open it to find MIRA, the most adorable Shiba Inu fiddling with keyboards, controls and levers, jamming out to some tunes. She's actually very cultured, you see. This is quite the shock to James Sunderland, as he has just found out his dog is the reason for the game's entire chain of events. Fortunately though, for any die-hard fans and bad nerds, the dog isn't classified as canon in regards to the franchise. 8. Metro Exodus, the Dark One's HOOKAH. The Metro series is known for its unsettling atmosphere among the railway tunnels of a post-apocalyptic Russia, showcasing ghosts, mutated monsters, and creepy crawlies alike. One of the most pivotal of these are the Dark Ones, a race of alien-like, intellectual beings that can communicate telepathically as a result of radiation and nuclear fallout of events that precede the game. Throughout the series, there's a lot of controversy between characters about the purpose and intentions of the Dark Ones. And that gets even more interesting if you stumble across their extremely laid-back beach getaway. At a certain point in the game, you'll come to a coastal area near a lighthouse. Along one point of the coast, you'll find a hookah pipe, some chairs, and a TV, indicating someone was clearly big chilling on the beach. If you take a fat rip of said pipe, things will get a little bit weird and a dark one will appear out from the TV set before disappearing again. Unfortunately, words won't do it justice, which is why we're showing it on screen right now, but you should go and see it for yourself. It is nice to see the Dark Ones again, even for a short while. 7. Layers of Fear, the Halloween Room. Some Easter eggs can only be triggered on certain dates, and is there really any better date for a horror game egg than Halloween? The Layers of Fear developers say no, and with that sentiment allowed a usually locked room in the basement of the game's main building to be accessible. The player will see mention of a spirit board, and from there it is up to you to explore and figure out what it can do. What is particularly interesting about this Easter egg is the sheer amount of interactivity and options available. The Ouija board has numerous inputs coded into it, each giving a unique result. For example, if you put in Cthulhu, you'll be met with a huge tentacle monster, or if you input child, you'll see a child's room, and woman or wife will conjure a deadly female spirit in the corner. Darkness makes it dark, 666 brings a demon teddy bear, and wine gets you drunk. Guess what happens when you put death into the spirit board? 6. Fear, persistent door. Fear is a somewhat forgotten game, and although it's hard to rank it among the hidden gems, it still shines a light into an interesting part of the horror genre of video games. Sure, the player has guns and is in full control with regards to means of attack and offense, meaning that vulnerability, one of the great staples of horror games, is removed. That doesn't mean there isn't still a heavy backdrop of the paranormal as your SWAT team, which deals specifically with ghosts, takes on the likes of Alma Wade. Speaking of Alma Wade, in this first mission you will come to a very stubborn set of doors which refuses to open. Or do they? If you retaliate with the same stubbornness, interacting with and attempting to open the doors repeatedly, you'll be granted access, only to find Alma, the game's creepy poster child, hiding in a corner. Following from her quick disappearance, you'll be allowed to progress ever so slightly beyond the doors, only to hear a little girl screaming, before being sent back to your point of entry. A very creepy introduction to Alma, if you ask me. 5. Observer. Room 202. The PT Room. From the developers of Layers of Fear, Observer tackles the similar vein of psychological horror, but this time twinning it with a lot more character interaction and some cyberpunk style. That style wasn't all on their own though, since it was a certain game that gave influence to a special room within Observer. PT, the demo for the now cancelled Silent Hills game, has long stood as one of the cultural phenomenons of PlayStation, and apparently, Bloober Team were big fans. Room 202 of Observer showcases an apartment eerily similar to that of PT, but with a modified style to better suit the game. It is a lovely, horrifying tribute to the playable teaser that reminded horror fans what it was like to be scared of a game again, and quite surprisingly for an Easter egg, it is actually rather long. As a result, the detail and atmosphere here is really worth getting lost in, even if it is a reminder that Silent Hills will never happen. 4. Resident Evil 2 Remake. Welcome Leon. And here we have another very not scary Easter egg in the otherwise intense and spooky game of Resident Evil 2. The best kinds of Easter egg are ones with depth, perhaps ones you look at and don't figure out straight away, or in the case of the Resident Evil 2 remake, a reference spanning back to a mistake made in the original game over 20 years ago. The Easter egg takes place in the office of Resident Evil 2's police station. You'll see a sign welcoming Leon to the force, as this is of course his first day. However, there's a gap in welcome between the L and the C, hinting at something being missing. Below the sign on the left, you'll see a spare L. But why? Well, back in the original version, fans with a keen eye notice that the sign read, Welcome Leon with 2 L's, clearly being some kind of translation error. And in homage, we have this clever little Easter egg. It's not too in your face and acts as a nice nod to anyone in the know. 3. Alien Isolation. A cat meets a Xenomorph. Alien Isolation is undoubtedly one of the pinnacles of horror video games, taking what the likes of Amnesia, The Dark Descent, and Outlast brought to the table and introducing it to the Alien universe. The game doesn't pit us against monster butlers of a haunted mansion, but instead the perfect organism, the Xenomorph. Isolation is vast, spanning across Sevastopol space station that has been ravaged by aliens and androids alike. It is a great spin on the classic horror story, and one that features plenty of Easter eggs, from Blade Runner to everyone's favourite four-legged companion, cats. Just pretending dog people don't exist for a moment. Throughout the course of the game, you'll come across Bartholomew Hughes, who is quickly killed by a working Joe android. This isn't too important, but it does provide some additional context, as it's worth noting he and his family lived aboard the Sevastopol with his cat. As the game progresses, somewhere in the midst of Mission 2, when wandering the station, you'll be able to hear a faint meow repeatedly. This will go on for a while until it eventually ends with a scream and what sounds like said cat meeting a Xenomorph. Should have taken notes from the original movie's Jones, it seems. 2. Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Hala. Fair, Alien Isolation managed to innovate and progress what Amnesia started back in 2010. But Amnesia was one of the first to trailblaze through the horror genre. It created atmospheric environments, genuinely terrifying enemies, and debatedly popularised the run-and-hide style of horror game that many others have experimented with or outright tried to copy since. Regardless of how scary the game can be, this Easter egg takes it in a completely different direction. It's important to note that this game isn't known for platforming at all, and its movement isn't anything new, but there are plenty of boxes and entities around the map that you can place and climb. With that in mind, there's an area early in the game with a busted ceiling. If you're agile enough, you can carefully create a pile of at least 10 boxes, which is far more difficult than it sounds. Jump up and see a sign that says Halla, meaning hello from Swedish to English. It is nothing more than a cute little greeting from Swedish developers Frictional Games, but it is sweet nonetheless. 1. Resident Evil 4. Don't shoot the water. Resident Evil 4 is on the older side these days, but the game still holds up, particularly in comparison to the poorly received 5th and 6th installments. In the same vein, it was also one of the last games to hold on to its creepier vibes before the series kicked it back into gear with the first-person perspective of Resident Evil 7. This Easter egg shows up near the midpoint of the game. You'll come to a giant lake with a little pier and a boat by it, as well as a shack with a save point available. Make a quick save and enjoy the view. As of now, the game wants you to hop in the boat and take on the huge lake monster boss, Del Lago. Instead though, peer off the pier and shoot into the water. In this instance, you'll be meeting the boss much earlier than you're supposed to, and instead of fighting it, he will just eat you. That'll teach you for disturbing the fish. And that's our list. What other horror Easter eggs deserve a spot up here? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I've been Ash and this has been WhatCulture Gaming. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and come back again soon for some more spooky secrets. Thanks for watching.